The film begins with World War II airmen flying a B-24 Liberator bomber over a Pacific island. Louis Zamperini is a bombardier, and he and his team are on a mission to attack Japan. Many people are hurt, but because to the competence of their pilots, Phil and Louis, they safely land the plane despite being shot hundreds of times. Back to a younger Louis, who lives in Torrance, California. He is a misfit, having started smoking cigarettes and drinking at the age of 12. After being caught fighting, the cops bring him home. His father is unhappy because it isn't the first time. We meet his family briefly, a traditional Italian family living in America. At a baseball game, he is caught with cigarettes and alcohol under the bleachers and flees to avoid trouble. This is when his older brother discovers he is a fast runner. He starts training him, which keeps him out of trouble. Years later, he becomes the fastest runner in the history of his high school and attends the 1936 Olympics. At the games, he starts a race in last place but manages to break the American world record. In current day, the crew of the shot-down plane has been transported to Hawaii to await reassignment. Louis surprises his fellow soldiers by continuing to practice and surpassing the 4-minute mile. The men are sent on a mission to find a missing plane and crew. They are handed another B-24, although it is known for being defective. While on the search, mechanical issues cause the plane to crash into the ocean of Oahu, killing 8 of the 11 personnel on board. Louis, Phil, and a man named Mac are the only 3 survivors, making their way aboard lifeboats. The 3 are struggling to survive, noticing that they have few rations on day 2. An airplane flies overhead, and they attempt to signal it with dye and a flare pistol, but they go undetected. They continue to fight, despite Mac's growing despair as their resources run out. Sharks begin to circle the boat and learn to remain low. On day 9, they clobber an albatross that has landed in their boat and attempt to eat it, but immediately vomit it up. Instead, they use the albatross as bait to attract fish, and they eat raw. To keep their heads sharp, Louis tells them how much they'll enjoy his mom's gnocchi and goes over the recipe. On day 19, their situation worsened. They are covered in insect bites and are very dehydrated. Phil and Louis talk about God. Phil believes that when it is time to die, an angel will sit at the edge of his bed and tell him she has the answers to all of his questions. 2 days later, a hazardous storm creates 30-foot waves. Louis makes a contract with God that if he survives, he will serve him the rest of his life. They all manage to stay together. They are all dehydrated. The next morning, Louis awakens to see rainfall. The 3 of them enthusiastically fill containers with fresh water and drink the raindrops. 2 days later, Louis pounces on a shark swimming alongside the boat. Louis stabs it in the eye with a screwdriver, and they pull it into the boat to feast on its flesh. By day 33, all 3 have full beards and skeletal faces. Another plane flies above, firing its flare cannon to attract attention. The plane circles around, and everyone is stunned that they will finally be rescued after a grueling 4 weeks. But suddenly the plane starts firing at them. They all hastily jump into the water to shelter from the bullets, kicking sharks away. They resurface on the life raft, but the fire continues. Louis dives back into the ocean, leaving Mac and Phil huddled on the boat. When Louis returns to them, he believes they are dead, but they had escaped all of the gunshots by staying hunkered down in the raft. The plane disappears, and they patch up the holes to stay afloat. On day 34, Louis and Phil talk about baseball to keep their minds busy. Mac has taken a turn for the worst. He slowly dies. On day 47, Phil and Louis wake up with both good news and bad news. The good news is that a boat discovered them. The bad news is that it was the Japanese, and they are now imprisoned. Louis and Phil are transported to a POW camp and imprisoned in cells. A tiny bowl of rice is placed in the cell, and he eats it eagerly. One morning, Louis is taken from his cell by his neck to a Japanese officer and a translator. Louis is questioned what his troop is doing there, and he claims he does not know. The officer identifies him as an Olympic athlete. They ask if he's a bombardier. Louis inquires about the Marines left behind on the island, and is informed that they were beheaded. Louis is placed back in his cell. He carves his name into the wall with others who have been imprisoned there. A month passes by. Louis is dragged outside with Phil. They are forced to strip. Both are afraid they will be shot. Instead, they are sprayed with cold water and instructed to shave. They are sent to a prison with 40 other Marines. The group is transported on trucks to the streets of Tokyo and then to a POW camp in Tokyo Bay. They are greeted by Corporal Mutsushiro Watanabe, also known as the Bird. He informs them that they are enemies of Japan and would be punished appropriately. Louis gives him a short glance. The bird approaches and orders Louis to look at him before striking him with a kendo stick. Louis stands up and repeats the process, fracturing Louis's nose. He is told to stand up again and gaze at him, and then struck again. He only leaves Louis alone after telling him not to look at him. Louis has no choice except to tolerate the assault. The bird informs the group that they will need to be isolated to prevent sickness from spreading. He then leaves. Louis and others move into the barracks. Other Marines tell him about the bird, a nickname they gave him because they couldn't call him whatever they wanted. They tell Louis that the bird grew up indulged by his father. He was not permitted to be an officer, so he overcompensates in his current position, which explains his sadistic tendencies. Prisoners are forced to perform calisthenics outside in the cold. The bird travels around, observing the talent in their camp. He asks an opera singer to identify himself, then a cook, and finally an Olympic athlete. He already knows who it is, and Louis admits it is him. The bird arranges a race between Louis and a young Japanese guard. Louis is weak and unwell, and he is unable to keep up. Then the Japanese runner wins. The bird informs him, "You fail. You're nothing." He cracks his face with the stick once more. The prisoners follow the war through publications stolen from the Japanese, and one Marine constructs a map to keep track of American positions. Louis notices one prisoner who has some of his fingernails taken and explains that he was tortured for information. They all agree not to help the enemy, regardless of what they are put through. The prisoners are forced to perform grueling manual labor, including cleaning the latrines. One man observes that for guys who don't eat, they really shit a lot. As they pass the bird and the guards, Louis smiles at them. They get to the water and drop their feces. The barracks are examined, and the bird finds the map. One soldier is beaten while Louis stands by helplessly. Later, he expresses his desire to kill the bird but is told that he would be shot if he does. He is told that they can only beat the bird if they survive the war. The bird and guards awaken the POWs in the middle of the night. Louis hides in the back because the bird has taken notice of him. But the bird approaches him and beats him for not being in place. He questions Louis, "Why do you make me hit you?" One morning, a stranger informs Louis that renowned Olympic runner Zamperini has died. They ask whether he wants to go on the radio and inform his family that he is still alive. He agrees and is taken to the radio station. He informs his family that he is unhurt and in good health, and that he gets the best possible care. Louis is dining in a cafeteria when he is requested to make another announcement negative of America. In exchange, he will be able to become a Japanese citizen and avoid the POW camps. However, he refuses to betray his country. He's hauled back to the barracks. Everyone has gathered outside. The bird ties Louis's hands behind his back and says, "You're like me. We're both strong. I noticed it in your eyes on the first day. I assumed this man would be my friend. But you, the opponent of Japan, do not listen. You don't do what is expected of you." He informs the others that Louis must be taught respect, and then orders all 200+ men to punch him. One of his friends turns down. In return, the bird starts beating another one of his friends. Louis now encourages the first man to hit him. Louis is punched, pushed down, and then rises back up to face another hit. It continues on for several hours. His cheek is split wide, he is bleeding heavily, and he is unable to open his eyes in the end. Months pass by. During an outdoor production of Cinderella, with the convicts performing all the roles, the bird sits next to Louis and informs him that he is being promoted and transferred to another camp. He informs Louis that this is sad news because he would have to say goodbye to all of his friends. He pushes Louis to congratulate him on his promotion, but he remains silent. The bird is transferred, and life at the camp improves dramatically. But then fighter planes pass overhead. However, the group is concerned. If the Allies win, the Japanese will issue kill-all orders. If they win, they'll be dead. Bombs detonate all around them. The next morning, the troop is moved to a new camp past the bomb ruins. The prisoners transfer to a new camp. They have all assembled in the compound, and the commander's name is the bird. Louis collapses at the sight. The bird informs them that they will all be working on the coal boats, and that anyone who refuses to help will be executed. The bird questions Louis on why he can't look him in the eyes. He then strikes him. The crew has settled into their barracks. An Australian POW informs them that no one is aware of their presence and that this is the end. Everyone works hard to get the heavy coal into the railroad carts. They are placed in baskets tied to the backs of POWs. They then have to climb narrow 5-story steps. The coal is so heavy that one man collapses and falls to his death. Everyone must continue as if nothing happened. One day, while working, the prisoners learn that President Roosevelt has died. One man breaks down in tears, while the others do not respond. Weeks pass, and the workers continue to work on the coal barge in the extreme heat. Louis rips his leg, permanently destroying his Olympic hopes. He is now weakened and defeated. One day, as the men were working, the bird noticed Louis resting his leg. He instructs him to stand up and take up a 6-foot wooden plank from the ground. He is advised to hold it above his head. Louis struggles but yet manages to obey commands. The bird instructs the guards that if Louis lowers the plank, they should shoot him. He then goes away to observe from a distance. Louis sweats but keeps the beam over his head. Minutes pass, and everyone is now watching. Louis remains steady despite his weakness. Louis had been holding the wooden plank above his head for 25 minutes. The bird is agitated. More minutes pass. The bird is now furious. He hits Louis in the stomach before beating him with his kendo stick. Louis bears all of the torture. The sun has set. The prisoners are told to return to their barracks. One day, the guards inform the prisoners that the battle has come to an end, and the men are invited to bathe in the river in celebration of their great nation's new destiny. Armed guards with weapons lead the group to the river. The soldiers are sure they are going to be killed. They arrive to the river and begins to wade in the water as the men surround them with weapons aimed. But then everything is interrupted as an American bomber plane flies overhead and in Morse code tells them that the war is ended. All the POWs shout. Food and supplies are delivered from the skies in packages. Back at camp, Louis enters Bird's office. He notices a photograph of the bird as a young boy with his military leader father. The kendo stick is against the wall, but the bird is gone. Louis is transported home to California and hugged by his family. This is shown beside a real-life photograph of the scene. The final scenes reveal that Louis has a wife and family and has stayed friendly with Phil long after the war. The bird was hidden as a war criminal for several years, but the United States eventually granted amnesty as part of its efforts to reconcile with Japan. Louis followed through on his promise to serve God, which he claims transformed his life and convinced him to forgive. He returned to Japan and met with all of the men who had wronged him, except for the bird, who refused to meet. In 1998, Louis returned to the Olympics to carry the torch during the Games in Japan. A memorial card states that he died in 2014, 3 months before the film's release.